this is the weird or tough question. So what do you think makes a song a quote unquote country song, which is probably the genre most people now associate you guys with? Is it rhythm, instruments used, lyrics? I mean, everybody has their own opinions. I'm curious as to, when you guys are writing something, do you guys go, oh, this is a country song, this is this? Does it make a difference? And if so, what do you think that difference is?
We don't really even think of what it is, country, or because we had kind of have a built-in sound, you know.
Yeah, most people just say now it's just a Bellamy Brothers song.
Yeah, and I mean they've accepted that from us.
Yeah.
As far as our genre, you know what I mean.
Yeah, it's but yeah, we don't think about much about genre, and I mean, and when I hear a song on the radio I don't think much about it. Whatever it is, I just like it, or don't like it.
That makes sense. So a little while later, you guys would write and record Old Hippie on your Howard and David album. Um, I mean, to me, it makes sense to think that you both had a bit of that spirit, just like you said at the beginning of the show. Where did the idea for that album come about?
That song, Old Hippie, was what I would usually call just a composite character, because it included ourselves, but it also included, guys we grew up with, that went to Vietnam after high school and just kind of live that life. That song was about, people like sort of on our generation, sort of turning middle aged and not really adjusting to some of the changes as well as they should like ourselves.
Still adjusting.
How much of let's just use the phrase hippie music of the 60s and 70s had an influence on the type of music that you guys wrote? Or who are your biggest influences?
Okay. Well, I don't know. Joni Mitchell is one of our favorite songwriters of all time. Big Joni fans, all the great writers. The source of the music is kind of where we've always gone.
Yeah, writers, songwriters, Dylan and Neil Young and Carly still in there. And yeah, all those guys. We liked all that folk rock and all that stuff. And we've been fortunate over the years, to get to meet some of those guys. Neil Young was actually a fan of Old Hippie. He had us on all these shows. Yeah, he invited us out to come play a show with him because he was a fan of it. And Dylan was actually a fan of Old Hippie too.
Did anyone else in your family have kind of that hippie spirit, or were you guys some kind of the outliers in your family?
No, we pretty much started the hippie spirit in our family. Yeah. Because, of the time, there really weren't, before us, it was too early for hippies but it came along during our time. I was born shortly after Dad got back from the war. And, so they put me in the early part of the era, and I was a little before the hippie era, but, I quickly adjusted into it when I compared that against drinking, running out with the rednecks. I preferred the hippies a lot more. Good conversation, a lot, just no hangovers. But we sort of got to see the rednecks sort of become hippies. And yeah, we did. We saw merge.
Some of the hippies become redneck. It's got the melting pot there.
Well, and I was going to say, some of your music, much of your music even, has found even more life, I guess, as line dance music. And I suspect that's because your music has kind of what you guys said earlier, kind of the Bellamy Brothers sound, or Bellamy Brothers, dare I say, groove to it. And I'm presuming that's because the songs kind of all have this, kind of groovy sensibility.
Yeah, well, groove and feel are probably one of the most important to us. That's as important as the song and the lyrics are. Because
they're all equal. There's groove, melody, and lyric. And if you've got good of all three, you're pretty much gonna do all right. That's the trick, combining those three. Beautiful Body is interesting, and it had a bit of comedy in it as well. But it was a very, very pretty melody. So it was a combination of very, very weird things.
It was a love song with a novel title, basically.
Well, speaking of Beautiful Body, you guys later recorded that with Dolly Parton in the 2000s. How did that collaboration come about? I mean, I'm guessing at that point you probably had already met and knew her already. Am I right wrong now?
We toured with Dolly, quite a few times over the years. Yeah, so we were doing that Angels and Outlaws project with quite a few different artists, and we called Dolly up, and that was one of the greatest days because she came to the studio. She was with us for couple of 3 hours in the studio. That was a hoot. I mean, it was just listening to her sing and telling road stories, and it's just hysterical.
She is a fantastic storyteller, not just musically, but just
Dolly's a real deal. She's just like she is. That's the thing.
That is so cool to know. So the dilemma for me here is there's countless albums and hits we could discuss from here because you guys have had so many. But what I wanted to ask you instead, kind of to tie some of this together, is there any common thread or common calculus you can see to which songs will be hits and which ones won't? You mentioned some ingredients a few moments ago. Is there any ingredients that we skipped over that are kind of in the hook, or something else that you feel is a necessary ingredient when you guys are producing or writing a song? Oh, well, we have to have this ingredient or that ingredient to know that it's going to be a hit.
Well, nowadays, I think a lot of that's changed because I don't really even know what a hit is anymore because the way things are. I mean, I'm still hung up. I can't figure out why it takes 5 people to write a song, but because nowadays you see the songwriters listed and it looks like a law firm, but it's hard to. But from our era, we kind of knew it wasn't so much a formula, but we knew the ingredients. It was like baking a cake or making a delicious dish. You had to add those ingredients for it to. The Bellamy Brothers can sing that, just like Let Your Love Flow. When you hear it, we could sing that.
We did have an ingredient on a song we did called Reggae Cowboy that I don't think on any other album that I've ever heard is a gas can.
When you guys go into writing, is it a more linear process where it goes in a certain order, or is it bits and pieces and you put them together? What is or does it change based on the song?
It changes. It's kind of all of the above.
And even sequencing of an album anymore is not as crucial as it used to be because
there's no such thing. It's just sequencing now. Yeah, it just comes out on the internet. It can be a one song download, or it can be a EP, or it's things are just really different now. So you have to approach them kind of different.
Now, you were talking about Beautiful Body and how the title of that song came from a Groucho Marx bit or joke. And then we talked about Let Your Love Flow, and it seems like you get ideas for different songs from different places. How many of your songs have been based on like real life experiences or conversations for both of you? Is there one that's like a prime example?
I think David written a song called Sugar Daddy. And he heard a conversation in Knoxville, Tennessee. I remember when this somewhat of a couple that was having a conversation.
Yeah, there was a guy and his I guess wife or girlfriend, I don't know, but they're trying to fix her car outside a hotel room, and we got the hood up, and he's kind of underneath the hood like a shade tree mechanic, and he says to her, what you're gonna need is a new car, and she goes, no, what I need is a sugar daddy. And so that's sometimes things like that will just trigger you and say, oh yeah, that would be a good song. So,
you're like, I got to write that down right now before I forget about it. Yeah. It's like you're in a restaurant, somebody says something and you go, I got to write that on a napkin right now.
How about a few napkin songs?
Do you guys have any like dark horse tracks that no one really knows about that are based on like a real life story that are individual to you guys, not something you saw outward?
Well, yeah, there's a lot of stuff, you know, that are, um, I mean, we've got a pretty big, extensive catalog, you know, and a lot of those, a lot of songs that are in there that I think should have been. We've got a song called Guardian Angel that I wrote. In fact, Willie cut it with us on that same album that Dolly was on. And I thought would have been a good song for radio at that time, but couldn't get the label. Again, the label couldn't get them to release it. But there's several songs that we have. We actually recorded "Sweet Caroline" with Neil Diamond, and we have that recording. We can't do anything. Yes, yeah. And Neil sent us a handwritten note on how sorry he was, and they wouldn't let us put it out. But the label wouldn't let us put it out. They won't let him or us put it out.
Is that something that you think is forever, or do you think, because right now Neil's having quite the resurgence? They got a Broadway play, they got all this other stuff.
Yeah, that's the thing. We might hit him up again.
We might hit him up. Yeah, we've got several duet. We got a duet with Chaka Khan. Pecan we have. They're working
with who?
Yeah.
Oh wow. Yeah. So I mean, and he's you know, my understanding is he's got some health issues, so it's one of those things where if you're going to do it.
Yeah, they're going to do a Broadway. They're doing a Broadway musical based on his songs, and those.
Yeah,
they got
exactly.
So,
you know,
hopefully we can get it out.
Now, yeah, now would be. It seems like it's ripe for the picking again, maybe.
Yeah. Yep.
So you know, speaking of songs that you've gotten from other people, how can you guys tell, or how do you guys pick these mega hits out of a lineup when they're written by somebody else? Do you guys just have a nose for it? Or is it, like you said, because you can automatically feel each of you and go, I know, you don't even have to assign each other parts, you just know where you'd fit?
Yeah, more or less, you know, we did a song called "Do Your Love As Good As Your Look," and somebody actually mailed it to us. It was a reel-to-reel tape. And we heard it, and that was it. You know, it was perfect.
You don't get many of them, but when you
Once in a while.